Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we're going to have a fun discussion. We're going to be talking about men in women's sports. Okay. Now, I'm not going to so much get into the politics of it, right? But I just want to give you guys some observations based on what I saw this week with my son's basketball team, right? So, my son, he's 9 years old. He plays on the fourth grade basketball team. Okay. And this past Thursday, as a training exercise, they played against the fifth and sixth grade girls basketball team. Okay, so the fifth and sixth grade girls, because when you get into those grammar school years, I mean, there's big differences in height and size. Like between a second grader, a third grader, fourth grader. There's big size differences. Okay, so the fifth and sixth grade girls were much taller than the boys, okay, and probably stronger too, right? They didn't look like most of the girls didn't look like they had quite gotten into puberty yet, but they're probably getting pretty close. So definitely taller, probably stronger, okay? So the fourth, now, to give you guys some context here, my son's basketball team, okay, this is his second year doing this, and they're not that good. Okay, they're not that good. I watched them play a league game today. So this is a league game where they're playing like fourth grade boys against fourth grade boys of another school. Okay, and they got crushed. I mean, they lost. I think the score was like 13-6. Okay, so they lost by twice as many points. So two major mistakes I saw his team make today. Number one, and this is specific to my son, doing suicide charges into the other team, right? So you get the ball, and sometimes, if you get the ball in the game and you see a clear line to the basket, yeah, sure, absolutely, go for it. But he would get the ball and he would basically just charge to the other side of the court, directly into three or four other members of the opposing team, where basically he would just lose the ball. Right? He's not a great dribbler, so he'd like dribble down there, and basically they would just take the ball from him. Okay. So the other thing that his team, this isn't just my son, but his whole team. The other thing that they were doing really bad is passing. Okay. When fourth grade boys pass, they haven't reached puberty yet. When they pass, they're really not able to do a chest pass. Because they don't have the strength yet. So what they end up doing is throwing the ball up into the air, sometimes doing this thing, okay? So they were basically handing the ball to the other team, okay? So just for context here, my son's basketball team is not very good, okay? They try, right? But they're just not very good yet, okay? So now let's go back to the boys versus girls, okay? So this is now Thursday night. It was a couple nights ago. So as a training exercise, basically, because the way to do it is in this gym, the boys team normally plays on half the court, and the girls team normally plays on the other half of the court. And there's actually a screen in between. This gym has like this gigantic screen that they bring down, just so that there's no interference. The ball from one side doesn't end up on the other side. So what they did is they raised the screen, and they had a full court game, 5-on-5. Okay, fourth grade boys against fifth and sixth grade girls. Fifth and sixth grade girls were towering over them. Okay, now as far as the girls, I don't think that they were a bad team. I don't think they were a great team either. Just watching them play, I didn't think that they were excellent shooters. I didn't think they were terrible shooters, right? As far as so with the way these kids work is, it just comes down to probabilities. If they shoot at the basket enough times, eventually something will go in. If they shoot at it from a close enough distance. If they try to shoot from it further out, it's like the chances of them scoring a basket drops down to nothing. If they're able to get closer to the basket, right, there's a better chance that they will score if they do it enough times. So quantity counts for something when you're playing at this level. So going back to this game now, fourth grade boys against fifth and sixth grade girls. Okay, they beat the boys, right? Beat the girls by double digits, right? So I think by double. So I think the score was the boys scored like 6 or 7 points. I think maybe 8 points. The girls only scored like maybe 3 or 4 points. Okay, so the boys got twice as many baskets, even though they were shorter. Okay, and the reason that they won, okay, was just aggression. Okay, I mean these boys were, just the attitude between the boys and the girls was different. These guys, when they would get the ball, I mean, these guys were like wild dogs, right? They were like just charging at the back, just charging down court and like shooting, missing, grabbing. Somebody would grab the rebound, shoot again, miss again. So they were just more aggressive at shooting, catching rebounds, reshooting, catching rebounds, shooting. Eventually, they would score, right? Just from repeatedly missing, but getting the rebound and taking another shot. So that's how they were able to beat the girls that were a lot taller than them. Okay, the point here is that, and this was a very interesting observation, is like even though we have boys versus girls here, right? The boys have not reached puberty yet, okay? And as far as I can tell, the girls haven't reached puberty either, right? 5th and 6th grade. I think they would be, because like visually they didn't look like they had developed into women yet. They're probably getting close, 5th and 6th grade. But we've got 2 groups here of kids that are pre-puberty, okay? The boys definitely pre-puberty, okay? And yet there's something about being a boy, right? That just like they just have this aggressiveness that they were able to overwhelm the girls with sheer aggressiveness, right? Just in fact, during that game, my son actually twisted his ankle, okay? And I could for a few minutes during the game, I could actually see him limping, okay? My encouragement from the side was get under the basket, instead of trying to run around, because he was actually trying to limp around the court. So I did. Now I'm not the kind of dad that would say get off the court and sit it out. I told him, I don't even think he heard me, but I was telling him to get under the basket and try to just catch the rebound and shoot, right, rather than trying to chase the ball around. Okay, but the point is that his aggressive nature, which he's inherited from me, despite the pain and discomfort, okay, he wanted to compete. He wanted to go after that ball. So after a couple of minutes, it looks like that pain kind of went away, and he was back to running. Okay, so anyway, again, this is an observation now based on reality and like what I actually saw, that the boys, even though they were shorter, even though they were like definitely like very little skill, okay, very little cohesion as a team, okay, essentially they suck as a team. We're able to overwhelm the girls who were taller with sheer aggressiveness. Now, like I said earlier, today when they played against another boys team of the same age, they lost. They lost. They lost. It was like 6-13 or something, because they just they played against a better team, right? And they're it's not that they were that much of a better team. It's just that my son's team is really not that good. But just an interesting observation on like how much of an advantage just sheer naked aggression can give you, okay? And that's one of the things that boys have, okay, males have even before puberty. So it's not just a puberty thing where at some point hormones kick in and things start happening. Even before puberty, there's still an aggressive thing, because I also got my daughter is a year younger than my son. She's like 11 months younger, and like you compare those two, like my daughter's aggression levels are nothing like my son's. Okay, and then I got another son that's 6 years old now, and again, him being a boy, highly aggressive. He wants to roughhouse. So this is a boy thing. Okay. It's just in their DNA, it's in their genetics, and it's not necessarily tied to the chemicals of puberty. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you guys. Now, that said, just to give you guys some additional information, I have been a competitive athlete my whole life. Okay, even now at age 53, I am highly competitive. I do armored combat. I've posted videos on my channel where I put on full armor, and basically I'm hitting people with clubs like this, right? This is basically solid wood over here, okay? So full power, full speed, highly competitive. Now we're in armor so that we don't actually get our bones broken. But in this I play in 2 different organizations where I do armored combat, and they are not gender divided. They're not gender divided. So the girls are able to compete with the men. The women are able to compete with the men. Okay. And the idea here is that we're all in armor, so we're most likely you're not going to get hurt. Okay. Although things do happen sometimes, you can have an armor failure. Occasionally we do get like a broken bone or something, but I've never had one. But it does happen. People have gotten bones broken. I mean, it's just what's going to happen when you're hitting people with clubs. Okay, bones are going to break if the armor happens to shift. Now, it's not going to happen if you get hit like someplace up here, because these bones are thicker. It's going to happen basically if you get hit like maybe over the wrist, over the finger, okay, or on the forearm over here. That's a little bit thinner. So if you have an armor failure, or the armor slips to the side or something, that's when that can happen. Usually we don't break bones. Okay, what usually happens, and even in the case of an armor failure, it's usually a really bad bruise that hurts for a long time. So anyway, so we got men and women competing. Now, when I came into this sport, right, of armored combat, there were already women in there, right? So I came in, this is back, we're going 17 years back, okay? So I came in as a newbie, and back then I was a powerlifter, so I came in as a strong dude, okay? Okay. I came in as a powerlifter, and I'm competing against women. Now, we have a sense of calibration. Basically, you got to land a good hard blow, and the blows are self-acknowledged. We're not playing for money or anything. So the interesting thing is, like, when I first started playing this sport, there were plenty of girls that could actually beat me. Okay, just because they were more skilled, and basically. Fighting with swords is kind of like, there's a lot of targeting. Okay, so basically we got a shield, right, and essentially you have to attack around the shield, right, and the openings are usually really small. So you gotta have good targeting. Okay, so when I first started fighting, my targeting wasn't really good. I wasn't so good at basically driving right through those open gaps. So many times, there were plenty of girls that could just beat me. Okay, so as I got better through the years, what started happening? Yes, the girls were still good, but in general, when you look at, again, there's 2 different leagues. When you look at the different people that compete, men in general are at a higher level. Okay, which is not to say that the women aren't good. But if you look at the top athletes in this sport of armored combat, right, you still have good women, but the best athletes are men. And again, that just comes back to genetics. Okay. The other thing I have noticed is that the women tend to retire out sooner. Okay. Because again, this thing's been going on now for 50, 60 years. So there's plenty of people that, started doing this back in the 60s that, basically retired a long time ago and have, even passed away by now. So we have many generations of fighters to kind of look back on. And when you look back, what you generally see is that as people start aging out, the men are typically fight well into their 50s. I'm 53 years old. I'm at the top of my game, okay? But you got plenty of guys that are fighting 60s. There's guys fighting into their 70s, okay? Again, remember, we're hitting full power, full speed, with clubs, and not every inch of your body is armored, okay? There's parts of your body that are not going to be armored. The armpit is almost never armored, so you're going to get hit in the ribs over here. You're going to hit in the arm over here, right? There's parts of your body that are not armored that you're going to get hit in. And you got guys in their 70s that are still very competitive, okay? With the women, what generally happens is they retire out a lot younger. Okay, I mean, there's, I mean, I don't know any ages. I mean, women normally don't announce their age. I mean, I believe I've seen a number of women that are competing that are probably in their 40s. I don't know if I've seen any in their 50s. Okay, I mean, I don't think I've seen any in their 50s. But the point is that there's lots of guys out there that have gray hair that are clearly into their 60s that are not just fighting, but are fighting at a very high competitive level. And as you get into the 50s, 60s, definitely into the 70s, you see that the women are dropping off, right? I mean, they're still active in the sport, doing other things, right? There's other things, there's other things that involved in setting it up and, marshaling it and stuff like that. So the women are still active in the sport. But as far as like the highest competitive levels, what I've noticed is that the women drop off sooner as they get older. Okay, so which is interesting because women usually do live longer than men, right? Women tend to outlive men in terms of years, but in terms of like combat and the ability to fight, it seems that the men are able to to continue fighting at a higher competitive level longer. Okay, so some interesting things for you guys to think about. I mean, there's just been a lot of stuff about women in sports in the last 5-6 years, whatever. So I wanted to give you those two actual observations that I have been able to make. Number one, having been involved in my son's basketball, and number two, having having been and still being a competitive athlete myself, right, in armored sword combat, and and in my case also, being in a sport that is co-ed, where you got men and women competing. Now we do occasionally have tournaments that are like just women, okay, or just men, or just like to say people over a certain age, right? Like over 50 years old or over 60 years old, right? Or we will have like novice tournaments where people that have been fighting for less than 2 years. So within that, right, we do have tournaments that subdivide certain groups out, right, for the purpose of that tournament. But overall, for the organization, it's co-ed, no age separation, nothing like that. In one of the groups that I fight with, we don't allow for grappling, right? Because grappling is generally going to favor the stronger person, not just the stronger person, but the heavier person. Okay, so in one organization, there's no grappling that's allowed. So that tends to draw more women into it. Okay, in the other organization that I fight, we have full grappling. Okay, so you can you can take somebody down to the ground. I have seen very little women fight in that competitively. Okay. I'm just trying to think. Have I seen any? I mean, yes, they're all women in it. It's just I have not seen them, like they're in it. They have armor, but like I haven't seen them like fighting tournaments where they're trying to advance. And the two that I know in that organization that allows for full grappling, they've actually aged out. Like they don't fight so much anymore. They do more teaching, right? Because that's one of the things that you do as you age out, right? It's going to happen to all of us. Like at some point, I'm going to get to a point where I can't fight competitively anymore, right? Maybe, not now, but maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15, 20, whenever. At some point, I will get to a point where I can't fight competitively. So at that point, my effort, I'm not going to drop out of the sport. My role is now going to be that of a trainer or of a teacher, trying to teach the new generation. So the women that I have seen in the sport that were that allows for grappling, they have at this point they have a teaching role, right? I mean, they can still put on armor and fight, but they just tend to favor the teaching rather than the actual fighting. So anyway, some stuff for you guys to think about. I mean, I'm just putting the information out there. I'm not telling you to think this or think that. I'm just giving you some facts, based on my experience and my observations. Okay, so thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Hey, some additional information that I thought I should add that I thought might be useful. I mentioned that in the armored medieval combat that I do, women tend to age out sooner, right? They tend to retire out sooner. But what I didn't say is that the number of women that participate in the sport are a lot less. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say like maybe 5 to 10%, all right, versus the men. Now, you might say that, hey, if we had more women in the sport, like let's say it was a 50-50 mix, maybe that more of the women would stay in longer, into their 50s, 60s, maybe their 70s, so that might be the case. But the fact that so few women are attracted to it also says something, okay? So it might just be that women, don't like the idea of being hit with a club, okay? So, and again, that's fine, okay? But it's, people do what they like doing. Like, I like hitting people, and when I screw up, when I miss a block, you know what? I deserve to get hit, okay? That's my my line of thinking, okay? And to me, like, pain is a great teacher, okay? If I'm getting hit and it's hurt, right, and it hurts, that's going to teach me to block better, okay? That's going to force me to block better. So that's my mentality, okay? Now, you can wear as much or as little armor as you want. Like, some areas are required. Like, you got to have your head covered because obviously you're going to get a concussion, right? If you get hit with a club. Elbows, knees, groin, kidneys, so throat, so some areas are required, but beyond that, you can have as much or little armor as you want. Like, for example, I have very little armor on my chest over here, right? Because I want to have maximum flexibility here, right? I've got no armor on my upper arm over here, right? I got my shoulders and my elbows and my forearms, but not this area here because I want to be fast, okay? So the more armor you have, the better protected you are, but also the slower you are, okay? So there's a trade-off there, okay? And also more armor is also tiring, okay? So again, these are things that, you have to kind of balance out, see what's going to work for you and how competitive you can be with more or less armor, okay? Now, like I said, I've been doing this for about 17 years. When I talk to people that know nothing about this sport, when I tell men about it, right, that the reaction that I usually get from men is, "Wow, that's pretty cool." The vast majority of them, okay. There might be like some 20% that will look at me like I'm a weirdo, okay. But when I tell women about it, right, again, women that don't know anything about the sport, have never seen it, right. The vast majority of women, like 80 to 90% of them that don't know anything about the sport, look at me like I'm a weirdo, okay? Like my mother thinks that this is a weird thing that I do, okay? So there's that, as far as how it's perceived by society, how men perceive it versus how women perceive it, okay? So something for you guys to, it's just, again, I'm putting out that information that I think is interesting. You can take it and do whatever you like with it, okay? So, I thought those 2 points would be interesting to know. So, again, drop some comments. I'll talk to you all soon.